Never again. We as a world have constantly said this phrase, that there are some things in the past that we will never do again, that we are going to step up and fight for people. Well, once again, the world has turned its back to a very familiar foe.
A leaked drone video is sparking new concerns that China is harshly targeting ethnic Muslims. The disturbing footage appears to show hundreds of detainees in Western China bound and blindfolded.
See new, detailed satellite analysis of dozens of suspected camps across Xinjiang.
A UN panel says the region resembles a massive internment camp, where more than 1 million Muslim minorities have been rounded up, detained and forcibly indoctrinated by the Chinese regime.
China has been keeping 1 to 3 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps in the most horrible conditions. But before I get into more details, I need you to understand that this entire episode will be about the economy. Because quite frankly, that is where this all started. You see, this region of China called Xinjiang is one of the most important areas because it is a very heavy source for coal reserves and borders neighboring countries that China has trade deals with and trade routes. And therefore, China needed full control of this land. But the Uyghur Muslims live there, a group that is so different from the Han Chinese, with a different culture, religion, language, and ideology. And so to keep economic and political stability, their president started a war on terror directed at religious extremism in order to, quote, be harsh and show the Uyghur Muslims absolutely no mercy. And so they began to round up these folks for the most horrible crimes, such as having a beard, having large amounts of kids, having large amounts of food, applying for a passport, eating a certain way, storing certain foods, smoking and drinking irregularly, storing dumbbells without obvious reasons, pre-criminal activity, looking untrustworthy, wearing a hijab, and praying. And they took these millions of innocent Muslims who committed these horrible crimes and placed them in re-education camps so that they could become the perfect, obedient Chinese citizens with any means necessary.
Uyghurs are brainwashed. There are also reports of inmates being tortured.
According to the survivors' personal account, they're forcing Uyghurs to denounce their religion. You have to allow us to convert you to be reformatted, reprogrammed to become just another Han Chinese.
These camps are de facto prisons and people have to go in them. They don't have a choice. They're separated from their families, and inside they undergo basically political indoctrination. So that can include having to sit for hours and listen to speeches by Xi Jinping, or singing patriotic songs, or listening to lectures about the party.
Some political scientists say that these camps are the worst thing to happen to an ethnic minority since Nazi Germany. However, China has been very deliberate about everything that's going on. Their number one goal is to eliminate this culture entirely. But they know killing them won't be enough. So you torture them to sing your songs. And if that doesn't work, you separate their children. And once that doesn't work, you sterilize and rape their women so they won't have kids in the first place. So for years, China has effectively been wiping out generations of Muslims while creating another that is brainwashed to think that what they are doing is correct. And the worst part is, I've just told you the story of how these Uyghur Muslims got into the camp. What's going on? I haven't told you what's going outside of the camp. camps and how we are all connected. Let me explain. According to the Australian Strategic Institution, a conservative estimate indicates that there are around 80,000 Uyghurs been transported to different factories around China, helping build their economy with free labor. But the thing is, what these forced laborers are making, you might be wearing right now.
And some, residents in Xinjiang are being rounded up and they're sent out to other provinces in China, spread across the country, and they're working in factories that are in the supply chains of a number of, very famous global brands that we wear every day, Nike, Adidas, Apple.
Not only has China failed to empty its concentration camps for people's safety, but China has sent massive numbers of Uyghurs to China proper to work as slaves.
The 83 companies that we know and love have directly or indirectly used Uyghur labor. Now look, these are lots of products and we use them every day, and I'm not saying to trash them. These companies, at least some, are investigating and changing their regulations or simply doing nothing about it. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that China holds the labor cost card on all of these organizations, forcing them to virtually do nothing or have halfway measures. But you're probably thinking, oh, Raheem, what about the countries that lets them export or import these goods that were made by the Uyghur people? And you're right. But forget standing up. Some of these countries are defending China, saying that they can do what they want on their own soil. Their sovereignty. In 2019, 37 countries signed a document praising China for their actions. And the worst part is many of these countries have a heavy Muslim population. How the hell can you pride yourself of being a Muslim nation and praise the oppressors of your Muslim brothers and sisters? But on the other hand, ignoring this defense, 23 countries have stepped up and signed a document condemning China of these human rights abuses. And you would be surprised who actually stepped up to the plate. Just a little bit.
US President Donald Trump has signed a bill condemning China for its human rights abuses against its Uyghur Muslim population. According to the White House on Wednesday, President Trump signed the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act of 2020 to sanction Chinese officials involved in the detention of more than 1 million Uyghur Muslims.
Stories of the Trump administration. I've just been seeing headline after headline today come out. As you mentioned, there's a story where he asked President Xi Jinping to help with his re-election. There's one where he seems unaware that the UK is a nuclear power. There's one where he does seem to approve of China building these detention facilities for the Uyghurs, which goes in direct contradiction to the bill that he signed today.
Now, President Trump, as per usual, has said horrible things about the internment camps, that they are the right thing to do, for instance. But he did pass the Uyghur Human Rights Act of 2020, which required periodic checks by Congress of what's going on exactly in the situation. It helped sanction certain officials related to the concentration camps. And in addition, the US banned 11 Chinese companies that are directly connected to Uyghur labor, and also help place restriction on other products made in a very similar fashion. And so once again, you're probably thinking, Raheem, the United States did it. We stepped up. Well, it's not as simple, because it's not enough. So where do we find this change, Raheem? Well, I haven't talked about the United Nations. There should be some hope there, right? Well, there's not. For starters, the Human Rights Council deals with human rights abuses, which makes sense, obviously. Since the Trump administration pulled out of the Human Rights Council, the only superpower left there would be China. And they also own 10% of the UN peacekeeping budget. And according to the Human Rights Watch, China has used their power at the HRC and began harassing public officials related to human rights accords. They are using their economic and political power to literally bully their way through the United Nations to get whatever the hell they want without consequence. And the fact of the matter is that these organizations that have turned a blind eye, these countries that have given half-measured approach or praised China, or when China pulls out their economic and sovereignty cards, we can't do what we're supposed to do. The UN, nay, the world fails to call it what this is: a genocide. And this is the only solution. And since our leaders and organizations have failed, we have to do it. I call on you. And the simple reason why is because we are connected. We have done such atrocities in the past and used the justifications of the economy or sovereignty, as we did with slavery, as we did with the Trail of Tears. And here's this. According to the New York Times, the Chinese president told his officials to model their policy and treatment of Muslims to how Americans treated Muslims after 9/11. As John Oliver put it, this was simply the Patriot Act on steroids. Think about that for a second. Just think about it. They're justifying themselves by using our playbook. And look, I know I'm not trying to discredit our work for equality or to say that we are responsible for everything going on. I'm not saying that. I am not saying we are responsible. I am saying that we are connected. I'm saying that we are connected because when we say never again, that should not mean only in our soil, but everywhere. We need to learn from our mistakes and to understand that these excuses or inaction by these countries, by these organizations, by these companies, and most importantly, by China, is not an excuse for the economy or sovereignty. But the reason is clear: to systematically oppress the Muslim community. It's Islamophobia in the 21st century at its finest. It is in front of our eyes, yet we play politics with people's lives. That, hey, we care about Muslims, just not enough for them to be in the headlines, just not enough to close down shop, just not enough to pass real legislation on it, just not enough to protect them, just not enough to stand up against the biggest bully we have seen since Nazi Germany. And look, I understand these are very tough times, I do, but I don't believe from the bottom of my heart that there is an economic or political price on human life. And that is why I call on you. We have to spread awareness about what is going on. We have to put pressure. We are the missing piece. We have to read up about the Uyghur Muslims and their culture and spread awareness to make sure their ideologies and legacies never die, even if China tries to their hardest. And we have to donate to these organizations by going to the link below so Uyghurs can start a new life and have a better future. We are the change. And doing any of these things can really help, I promise you. Your support may help so many people. Because as you know, for those who save or change one life, saves the world entire.